Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast. Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. It is Monday, a joyous day in San Antonio. It is April 22nd. This is episode 94. Chuck Migatinik rocking out as always. Don Harris throwing up the deuces. And Matt Roy on tap. Real quick before we get started, thank you to everybody who made the last episode of Sneakers and Cleats the most watched on YouTube that we've had ever by a significant margin.
Why? What did we talk about?
I think it must have been because I wasn't on it.
I think it was your intellectual insight onto Wemby and my always humorous demeanor. I think that we did a great job, but thank you. I think it was by like a couple of thousand views more than we've ever had. So it was,
I'll pat you on the back since you can't reach yourself.
Hey, no, it's a team effort. You know, Chuck not being here, I think, helped. No.
100%.
Luis and Bob.
Luis and Bob doing a great job. Des rolling on us. But anyway, I just want to start out with a thank you for that. Hopefully,
Tom Guerrero emailing in.
Yeah, that's one view that we got right there.
Hi, Tom.
So hopefully we can keep putting out the content that everyone likes. We talked a lot about Wemby, so we're going to continue to do that over the next few months. Obviously today, though, NFL draft starting on Thursday. We're going to talk a lot about what the Cowboys and the Texans are going to do. Plus, Dak Prescott had some really interesting comments on Friday about his contract status. Plus, Stephen Jones, we'll hear from him as well about maybe possibly drafting a quarterback and why they might not do that this coming draft. But as always, we start with number 94 and a couple of amazing Cowboys that we have on our list today, guys.
Yeah, 94, the number, both of these guys pop into my head, Charles Haley and DeMarcus Ware. And I was going to ask Chuck this because I'm not sure I know the answer. Who was better?
That's what I was going to ask.
That's close.
Well, Haley was on a better team.
He was the Super Bowl winner out of them.
Yes, but
with the Niners and the Cowboys.
Where probably pound for pound.
Where won a Super Bowl?
Did he win?
Yes.
I know. You don't got to tell me what DeMarcus Ware won, the Broncos legend.
I think Charles Haley was a difference maker on a really good team, but probably enjoyed the fruits of playing with other guys that were very, very good on that Cowboys defensive line. So I'll go with DeMarcus Ware as the pound for pound better player.
Correct me if I'm wrong. DeMarcus Ware has more sacks. I know that, but didn't Charles Haley win 5 Super Bowls? Was it 5 or 4?
It might have been 5.
I think it was 5. I think he won 2 with the Niners and 3 with the Cowboys. I think he, until Brady broke it, had the most Super Bowls in NFL history. I think I could be misremembering that, but I think that's right.
Okay.
But I mean, when you look at the accomplishments of it, Charles Haley might have him by a hair, but DeMarcus Ware was a better player, in my opinion.
DeMarcus Ware is the most dominant guy I've ever seen. I never forget, we were at training camp and Tony Romo going against this guy in practice. Like they just did special rules not to, not to touch Tony because there's nobody on the Cowboys offensive line that could even touch him.
Yeah, I mean that's how it was this offseason with Micah too. Like they were like, can you stop wrecking practice, please?
Yeah.
And I mean that's a testament to how good those players are. But DeMarcus Ware was
from
DeMarcus Ware. I know it, but I'm not going to know it off the top of my head right now. What is it?
Troy, Alabama. That's his hometown and where he went to college.
I knew that.
One of the nicest guys I've ever interviewed.
Yeah, that was. Absolutely. I've gotten the privilege to interview DeMarcus once, and he is just the nicest person.
Yeah.
He is he's just a sweet man in general. And he'll always be a Cowboy. He'll always be a Bronco. So
I just remember the look on his face. We were at a Panthers game in Carolina and him trying to figure out in his own mind how to answer questions because they could not stop the RPOs that were coming their way back in the day. So as good of a player as he was, there were some guys that could play in that league as well. So
how heartbroken was the Cowboys fan base? Because I obviously wasn't here in 2012 when he left to go to the Broncos on that 3-year, $30 million contract.
I think it was understood that it was one of those situations for the Cowboys where it was like when Emmett went to the Cardinals, it was like, it's time because they can't afford him kind of thing. Like, it wasn't heartbreaking because you knew you were kind of happy for him and the Cowboys were like, okay to let him go because of where they were cap wise. Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yes. And he was at the point of his career, right? It was time for probably him to go do something else and play on a better team.
Just wanted to send him off to win a Super
Right.
Bowl. It's fine.
Yeah.
I can also remember too being in Philly in a game where he would not do anything but run right up the field to try to get the quarterback, and the Eagles repeatedly just ran little trap runs at him and would run right by him. And I remember thinking, God, this guy's a good player, but for crying out loud, hold your zone, would you?
Some other things to happen in the year 1994. The Cowboys beat the Bills 30-13. They were down at halftime in that Super Bowl. I think it was 10-7 or something like that, 10-3, and then they came back and stormed back in the second half to end the Bills' would have been dynasty of their 4 consecutive Super Bowl runs. I think it's the most underappreciated accomplishment in football is making 4 consecutive Super Bowls, no matter if you didn't win any of them, but that's one of the most underrated accomplishments.
It was another mismatch. Cyber Bob will appreciate this. One of the most fun weeks of my career, 7 or 8 days in Atlanta. Oscar Zamora and Danny Trevino drove the old Texas Ranger satellite truck from San Antonio to Atlanta. And we went live at a
Two of our engineers here.
Yeah, we went live at a different spot in Atlanta every night that week. Chuck, you remember the guy that could have been arguably Super Bowl MVP that game on the Cowboys? I thought it should have gone to Emmett because remember they were down 10-7. They came out and they ran all the way down the field
in that third quarter. Yeah, it flipped that game.
Oh, it was like 10 runs.
I'm pretty sure it went to Emmett.
I thought you wrote on here that it went to Troy.
Oh no, sorry, Emmett. I forgot to erase that line. Emmett was the Super Bowl MVP.
Okay, he should have been. Yeah.
Troy doesn't remember that game the way he was still coming off the concussion.
Yeah.
But James Washington had 2 picks in that game.
My guy James Washington.
I love James Washington. And I remember at the time thinking he was a very viable candidate.
I can remember James Washington after a game one time. They got in a fight with the Giants. And he talked about the next time he's going to bring a bat on the field. He goes, where I'm from, there's no such thing as a fair fight. A fight is a fight. The good old days of the NFL.
In baseball that season, the 1994 season, it was a strike-shortened season after about, 110 games or so. They canceled the World Series. That would never happen in today's day and age, but that happened in 1994. So that's that. I still can't believe that actually happened in my life.
I still can't believe it either. And it's been a struggle for baseball, I think, getting the masses back in terms of TV ever since.
Absolutely. And then the Rockets defeated the Knicks 4-3. That was the first season sans Michael Jordan of his retirement.
That was the OJ Bronco
That was the
chase.
OJ. That's what that series will be remembered for.
Didn't they cut into the series?
Yeah.
I remember
they showed that game split screen.
I remember Bob Costas was doing that, right? On the broadcast for the Knicks.
The weirdest thing ever.
Yeah.
Split screen, the game on one side, the Bronco chase on the other.
The fascination has reignited with the OJ stuff since he died recently as well, which is just amazing because the documentary that they made on him, I think it was a 30 for 30 that they made, or it was one of those things. They had like a 5-part documentary where Dave Schwimmer played Rob Kardashian. It was a fantastic documentary, but everybody in this day and age didn't know about it. And then the documentary shed light on it, and they're like, that actually happened in real life. Like that was a real thing that OJ got away with murder, literally.
Yeah, double
murder. All right, let's get to some Cowboys talk.
Allegedly.
So, hey, he didn't do it, guys.
He wrote a book saying he did. Yeah.
But never mind. So anyway, Dak Prescott came out on Friday. It was a gala, another gala that he was at with Troy and some of the other former Cowboys. And he was asked a lot about his contract. And Jerry and Steven have basically said, we're not talking about contracts. We're not going to talk about the details of it. Dak didn't really go into too much detail of it, but he did say one interesting thing. And I think sheds a little bit of light on where the situation is. Luis?
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to be the highest paid necessarily. So we'll wait until the negotiations begin, and obviously want to put this team in the best situation.
Couple things. It's an 11-second clip, so you can parse out all the words you want. But 2 things there was not necessarily the highest paid, maybe just wants to get it up to where his standard is. I don't know what his standard is. And the second thing was when negotiations start, which indicates obviously that they haven't even talked about it, which is mind-blowing to me.
You know, it was only 11 seconds, but the only thing I took away from that is Dak Prescott going back to the mid-90s with the wardrobe choice of the banded collared gold shirt.
That was your takeaway from that. All right.
It's not a bad take.
Chuck, what do you think?
It's obviously we have to kind of read the tea leaves in some of this stuff, but obviously it doesn't sound like either side is talking. And I think it sure sounds like to me that Dak's side has dug in. The Cowboys have probably dug in at this point too. So who's going to blink first? Or is anybody going to blink at all? And this is going to end with Dak leaving, in some sort of divorce. Hopefully it ends amicably because they both meant a lot to each other. But I mean, again, at this point, how can you continue to pay him? Like they've already given him his contract, like the contract, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know that you can continue to do this, but from his standpoint, he is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. So if the Cowboys aren't going to do it, somebody probably else will.
Well, Chuck, two things. If it ends up being a standoff, we know who's going to cave because it happens every single time. It's
Well
Steven
said.
and Jerry.
Yep.
And two,
Can't argue that.
You can't say that he's gotten the contract because he's 31 years old. He's primed for another contract. They gave him a contract, but he's a player that's shown himself to be worth another contract. So even though, yes, you paid him like a top tier quarterback in the last deal, he's still playing like one of those ones that is a top tier quarterback.
When you paid him top 3 money. He's not a top 3 quarterback. I think going back to the thing that we discussed a few weeks ago, I don't know if you would call it a conspiracy theory. It was a pretty good theory about the Joneses' business portfolio and how the Cowboys are just a piece and not even their biggest money-making piece of all their oil and gas and all these things. This is my theory. Jerry's dug in with McCarthy and Dak in a prove-it mode. I'm going to get CD paid. I'm not doing anything with Dak till I see what these guys do next year. I think Jerry's willing to pony up and theoretically match anything that Dak gets in free agency. And so that's why Jerry's doing it because, look, I could lose him, but I could also just give him what everybody else is going to give him if he earns it on the field. If he doesn't, it's time to blow this thing up. It's year 9 and the guy's never won a playoff game.
Don, that's a dangerous game though. That
Sure.
they're going to play. If you're saying,
but it's not Patrick Mahomes we're talking about.
No, it's not. But it's a dangerous game to go into this year with Cooper Rush and Trey Lance, and all of which are on the last years of their deal. You're going in with 3 quarterbacks that are going to be free agents next offseason, and then Dak Prescott. So it's a dangerous game to say, okay, go play, and if you win, we'll pay you. But if you don't win, we're going to let you walk. I don't know if they have the cap room to do that next year either.
Well, here's the deal. Right now, Dak Prescott's making 21% of their overall cap. I mean, how much more money do you think he's due based on what the rest of that roster looks like? I mean, there's some big decisions to be made here because of what he's already making. And I would argue that, at some point, if he wants to stay in Dallas, he's going to have to take less money.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Yeah. Cyber Bob, everybody.
How did the Patriots manage to keep Tom Brady?
Because
for all the
Tom
years
didn't
they
take
did?
the most money. But he didn't care about that.
He was Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan, same way.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
LeBron did that with the Heat.
If you want to keep a star like that, he has to want to be on the team, right?
Yeah, let's be clear. Dak Prescott's no Tom Brady.
But I also think that that's the point that he might have been trying to make. I'm not necessarily asking for the most money. I'm asking for you guys to commit to me in this process is what I heard. Okay.
And from his perspective, yes, I get it. And from all the Dak lovers, I get it. He's a good quarterback. He's, I've said it 100 times. They're never going to win with Dak Prescott.
No, they're not. And I mean, I don't think so either. But let's hear from Dak one more time as well. This is, in my opinion, this soundbite you're about to hear about him, kind of being where his feet are, is just him saying, "Let's just get the season over with."
I'm not gonna say I fear being here or not. I don't fear either situation.
to be candid with you. I love this game and love to play and love to better myself as a player and my teammates around me. Right now it's with the Dallas Cowboys. It's where I want to be, and that's where I am, and that's the focus. And after the season, we'll see where we're at, and if the future holds that, then if not, we'll go from there. I'm focused on here right now, where I am. That's always how I've been.
His demeanor and everything that he's saying tells me I know exactly what my position is. I know I have you guys bent over a barrel. You're either going to pay me or I'm going to walk, and it's not going to be any skin off my nose. That's what he
okay.
says.
I mean, look where he's at age-wise, career-wise, everything else. I mean, what the hell's wrong with the guy playing out the last year of his contract? I don't have a problem with it. Good. Put the heat on him. Play for your next contract.
But you have to look at the position that it puts your franchise in, not just your franchise being like
even
Dak's
if he comes
franchise,
back,
but
we've talked about it for weeks, the position that this franchise is in. They can't go out and sign anybody else. So, at some point you're going to have to turn the page and get younger at that position.
But if you're
Who was it recently that did that ate a ton of cap space?
The Broncos.
To let
Russ go. Yeah, they're eating $56 million in cap space this
but
year.
at some point it's time.
I mean, Russell Wilson is not Dak Prescott. Dak is immensely better than Russ, just to be clear.
Towards the end.
Yeah.
Russ was better.
He was, but then the Broncos situation is a little bit different. But yes, they ate a significant portion of dead cap, or they are going to eat a significant portion of dead cap. Now, the difference is Dak isn't dead cap. They're still, he's still a good player. He's still on the roster. He's still going to be their starting quarterback. But it's the future planning that I think has all Cowboys fans worried, because it doesn't seem like there's a plan for either Dak or for the future of this franchise right now.
And this is where I think Jerry is. Enter Baker Mayfield. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers showed you last year what can be done, make the playoffs. Didn't they go further than the Cowboys in the playoffs? Didn't they win a game?
Yeah.
Okay. And they did it on a 1-year deal, and the guy they got off the scrap heap. There'll be somebody playing quarterback.
Sorry, I said son of a because Zach Wilson just got traded to the Broncos.
Like Zach Wilson.
Y'all need a quarterback.
He might be available.
Yeah, we still do.
You'll get somebody.
You got cool uniforms today, though.
I like
Count your blessings.
Yeah, UTSA.
That's right.
I hate being a fan of the Denver Broncos so much. Ever since DeMarcus Ware left, it's been crap.
You need to broaden your horizons. Be grateful. We're going to have 3 2-1-0 guys on that roster next year. So we're
all
all
going
going
to
to
be
be
Texas guys on that roster too. But
Yep.
Anyway, it seems to me like this situation has two ends. One, either Dak's here or Dak's gone, and the second option is becoming prohibitive or like increasingly more viable. Yeah. Let's get to the draft, because the Cowboys quarterback situation also could change on Thursday or Friday, depending on when they want to pick, if they want to pick a quarterback. Will they draft a quarterback? We don't really know. Steven was asked that question on Friday. This is what he had to say about it and their prospect, Trey Lance.
Next week's a big week for us strategically in terms of the what ifs and looking at a situation like you just mentioned. If a position falls to us that we feel great at with Dak, and then of course acquisition of Trey last year, Trey's done nothing but excite us even more as he's worked here, and in terms of his work ethic and his skill levels, we're very pleased with.
So Steven basically saying, we traded a 4th-round pick last year for Trey Lance. We don't really have the capital to draft a quarterback right now, unless the exact perfect situation comes up, is basically what I heard.
That makes sense. I mean, because they've already invested a lot. I mean, you invested a 4th-round pick in a guy, and this year, though, I think you have to look at it from their standpoint also, that he is in the last year of his deal. So if the perfect situation presents itself in terms of drafting a quarterback or somebody that you really like, they may have to pull the trigger on a quarterback this year.
Are there any quarterbacks that are going to be left by the time the Cowboys pick?
So I don't know if I was the Cowboys, and obviously I'm not, but if I was the Cowboys, I would draft a quarterback in the 1st round. That would be me. I would draft a Bo Nix, a Michael Penix, a JJ McCarthy, whoever was there, if I really loved one of those players.
JJ McCarthy's going to go number 2.
No, he's going to go number 4. But he's going to be the 4th quarterback on the board.
So do you trade up to get him, or you?
I wouldn't trade up.
Were they drafting like 24?
They're drafting 24. So Bo Nix might be there.
Michael
Penix might be there. Or you wait until your 3rd-round pick, your 2nd-round pick. You draft a guy like Spencer Rattler, Michael Pratt out of Tulane, Kenan Slovis out of BYU, Jordan Travis out of Florida State. You draft one of those guys.
Are any of those guys better than Trey Lance?
Yes, all of them are better than Trey Lance.
How do you know? Steven just said he really likes Trey Lance.
Yeah, but Steven's supposed to like the players on his
Are you
roster.
trying to trade him?
Trey Lance is done. Trey Lance is never going to be a quarterback in the NFL.
Bold.
Trey Lance will be a
That's the
backup,
kind of 5-second snippet that's going to go on a tease to get this to be the most viewed YouTube show of all time.
Tell me I'm wrong though. When is he ever going to get the reps that he needs to become a good quarterback?
When Dak leaves.
There's the second 5-second clip. And then it's
your turn, Chuck.
no, I'm trying to stay out of this frame.
No.
Because we've talked about the Trey Lance situation. Again, I heard third hand. That's what it is, third hand. So take it with an ion of salt. That Trey Lance is struggling up there. So that's not to say that he can't make the leap at some point to get better. But at some point, you're right. He does need reps. And I think some of this is, again, a guy gets to the league, and how many games did he play in college? Not many. I mean, there's a very small sample size on Trey Lance as a football player.
Trey Lance was ruined by COVID and by his situation. He went to a really good situation in the 49ers. He got hurt. He's had a string of bad luck, and it's nothing against him, but he's not going to be an NFL quarterback. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think he's too young to be able to make that leap at this point. I respect your opinion and all. I don't know. It's a weird situation that the Cowboys are in right now with all of their quarterbacks, no doubt about it.
Let me ask you this then. 24 comes around, the Cowboys pick. Let's say they don't trade up, they don't trade down, they don't do whatever. Who would you want them, not who, but what position would you want them to draft at 24?
Offensive line.
Don?
Center, running back, defensive line.
So running back, they're not going to do in the first round because there's no running backs worth taking in the first. Much unlike.
What about Jonathan Brooks?
That's a second round pick.
Well, 24 is almost a second round.
No, it's not. It's technically like the middle of the first.
I like Jonathan Brooks.
I'm curious to hear what
quarterback or a good running back.
I'm curious to hear what the Cowboys say tomorrow at their pre-draft press conference, because last year at this time they were talking about they only had 15 guys in the draft on their board that had a first round grade. So I think they're going to go with the very, very best available, whoever that may be, but they really could use some offensive line depth at this point.
I agree with you. I think they'll go offensive line, and there's going to be a lot of tackles that are taken early. This is a very offensive line heavy draft.
Who was their number one pick last year?
Mozzie Smith, yeah.
Look how that turned out.
But to Chuck's point,
that story hadn't been written either.
True, I guess he could.
Yeah, and we don't know
Chuck,
too, because there are guys getting paid ahead of him too. So, this is. I know I was spitballing the other day, and I think Matthew took umbrage with it, but some of what I think being all in is they're going all in with guys that are on this roster that may have necessarily not played a very big role in this team.
I was just about to bring up you saying that, because I think it's a good point of being like, we're all in with these guys. We drafted you for a reason. It's time to prove your worth or get the hell out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, offensive tackles.
And that's risky, right? Because we haven't seen it, but they have, right? They know more than we do because they're around these guys every day.
I don't remember a draft that we've gone into with the Cowboys recently, though, where there's more question marks, where there's more needs.
Agree.
Are you gonna draft Leighton Vander Esch's replacement? Who knows? Are you gonna draft Tyron Smith's replacement? Are you gonna draft Tony Pollard's replacement? Like, you've lost so many dudes and you haven't signed very many. So who are you going to replace with your high picks in the draft?
You're right. It's super easy to sit here right now and say this team is definitely not as good as it was last year. I think we would all agree with that based on what we have seen. But this is also going to create opportunity for somebody else. And let's just hope, I'm sure Cowboy fans are, that the Cowboys know more than we do at this point.
God, I hope so. I mean, there's going to be a lot of good players that are drafted this week, excuse me. I think that they'll end up going offensive line. If it was me, I would draft a quarterback, but that's just me.
But you asked the question, or Chuck did. He's interesting to hear what they're going to say tomorrow at the press conference. We know exactly what they're going to say. Jerry's going to say certainly, and Steven's going to say,
They're not going to reveal any trade secrets tomorrow. That's for sure.
And the facts are.
And
So let's talk about the Texans here. So the Texans are also interesting. They've had probably what could be the most successful offseason, or the best acquisition season of Any team in the NFL.
On paper, for sure.
On paper, they've had a fantastic offseason. You couple that with the draft that they had last year with Will Anderson and, Tank Dell and CJ Stroud. They're a team that is ripe for taking a leap. How does a team like the Texans, what positions does a team like the Texans maybe need to prioritize so they can continue building the depth that they've started building through the draft and through the offseason?
Well, they've addressed a lot of needs. I mean, Mixon and Diggs and they're just gonna be better. They re-signed Dalton Schultz. Defensively, they're stud at linebacker. I don't know where they're weak.
I don't either. I think this comes down to best available for them, right? I mean, you take the most talented guy, no matter what position he's at, that's who you take. But why are we even talking about the Texans? I mean, Nick Caserio just basically castigated everybody that talks about the pre-draft and the off-season.
He's
and
unlikable.
It doesn't matter because it's not in the building, and we just go to work every day. And
it's just to piss him off.
No, it's just garbage, is what he called it. So.
He was much more likable when they were horrible, and he was being blamed for everything.
Now
that he's done a wonderful job,
lap, Nick.
He is.
So he's done a really good job the last couple of years. He has the craziest eyes I've ever seen in my life. He's got some bug eyes there, man.
Second only to the low amateur at the Masters.
Whoa.
Did you see that dude?
The guy with long hair?
Yeah, in the Butler cabin when he was doing the crazy eyes look off camera.
It's no more crazy than Adam Gase a couple of years ago with the Jets.
Oh,
you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Adam Gase. Daniel Jones had a moment like that a couple of days ago too. But I think as far as the Texans go, so they've got 2 2s, a 3, 2 4s, a 6, and 2 7s. The amount of draft capital that they've built up and that they still have, I think their first pick is 42. Even after they traded away their first round pick this year, they traded up last year to get Will Anderson. They traded a whole bunch of picks. They traded for Stephon Diggs, and you still have 2 2s, a 3, 2 4s. Like, that's unbelievable draft maneuvering by Nick Caserio, despite how crazy his eyes are.
Thank you, Deshaun Watson, for all those picks.
Yeah, without question. I mean, because you think about, where they are with the 9 picks. So if you believe some people that say that this draft is top heavy and that there's not a lot of value on the back end, they're going to be able to move some of those 7th round picks possibly to get into round 5 and 4 if they decide to, maybe even move into the 6th if they really find somebody that they like. They're going to be able to move up because they've got some of those picks at the bottom.
For me, it's a comparison. The Texans and the Cowboys are just like on complete opposite ends of the spectrum. With the Cowboys, they have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 5, a 6, and 2 7s, and you have to hit on those picks. They don't have the depth on their roster anymore after this offseason to where they can miss on a pick or they can maybe hold the pick like they did Mozzie because they had Jonathan Brooks and they had all these guys ahead of him. They don't really have that luxury of being able to bring guys along slowly. You need instant impact players now. When it comes to the Texans, you're trying to build the depth now. You have the top end talent. Now you need to see what's going on in the middle of the road. How can you get those, that backup right tackle to back up Titus Howard or Laramie Tunsil? How can you get that middle linebacker? How can you get that special teamer? Kind of those things.
It looks like the difference between a window closing and a window opening.
Yeah.
These two.
There's
teams.
your 5 seconds, Chuck. That was great.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Without being too inflammatory.
No, that's a really good point. The Cowboys window is on its way shut and the Texans window is on its way open. I mean, that's a really good point.
Isn't that a sign in the manager's office when God closes a window, he opens?
When God closes a door, he opens a window.
Like okay.
Hang in there, baby.
Hang in there, baby.
Hey,
Is that
Bob.
the sign also in the men's room?
If you love something, set it free. If it comes back.
Last thing before we get out of here, how would you guys feel about drafting a wide receiver if you were the Cowboys in the first round? 24, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy,
Man, I really
Xavier
like.
Legette.
Yeah.
Is he the guy from Washington?
South Carolina. No, Romeo Dunze is the.
Oh, I like him.
He's gonna be a top 10 pick though.
Oh, I like him.
Let's take this another step, right? If there's no talks going on, or I don't even know how you quantify what's going on between the Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb, then what you just said makes a whole lot more sense.
Why don't you draft one?
CD's going to get paid.
CD's going to get paid. I don't know if it's with the Cowboys.
He's going to get paid with the Cowboys. I think they're being obvious. They're prioritizing him over Dak.
All right.
I think so too, because again, Dak's already gotten his bag. It's time for CD to get his.
Bob, you know where the Browns are going? Wait, do you guys still have picks, or did you just trade it all for Deshaun Watson?
Like 50. 50 is our first
50?
pick.
Oh, okay, that's good.
And I always think you should always draft offensive linemen. Always. That should always be your number one priority.
It's a safe pick.
Start with the big uglies and then work your way out.
That's a guy who's a fan of the team that drafted Big 77, Joe
Delama Lewis.
Oh, from
Thomas.
Oh, Joe Thomas back in the day. I thought you meant last year with that they made that big bet on that Ohio State kid who ended up being really good.
Joe Thomas was all-time great.
You see what Joe Thomas looks like now? He's all skinny.
Dude,
and
he's skinny.
like,
He drinks a crap ton, but he's skinny as hell. That's he's one of those offensive linemen that just dropped like
Is he a Michigan
45
guy?
pounds.
Was he from Michigan?
No, I think he's a Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's it.
He's a Badger.
Yeah.
Same thing.
On the way out,
True.
Don, did you see the Broncos uniforms? The new Broncos uniforms.
A quick.
I need an update from the uniform czar.
Okay, first impression. Not a fan of the numeral font, but it's not bad. It's just not great.
Bob, can you pull those up for us?
The white helmet bothered me. The Broncos need
White helmet's good.
They should wear a blue helmet, orange helmet. But not offensive by any means. I think it was nice. It's just an updated look, and they are going back to their throwbacks too.
No, that's going to be their alternate.
But
I wish they went back.
Look at the 4. Look at the font style. It looks like James Caan in Rollerball.
Dude, I was thinking the exact same thing.
Right? I mean,
some crazy DNA
digital
stuff going on in there.
So
I was like, man, that does look like Rollerball.
So I think I was with all Broncos fans across the country, and I think you said this to me.
And everybody said, "What are they talking about?"
I think you said this to me a couple of months ago that every team's throwback is better than their current uniform. And I completely agree when it comes to the Broncos. If they had come out and their color had been the old one and their logo had been the actual Bronco in the D, that would have been a home run. Instead, they've turned their blue from like a lighter blue to like a midnight navy, and it's just like you're trying to basically have a black color now. That's basically what they're looking at.
And the Titans need to turn back into the Oilers, man. That was
those were the best uniforms, weren't those? Baby blues, so good.
Those are the Charger baby blues.
Dude, the light blue is so much better than a darker blue on a uniform. It's so much better.
The Love You Blue Houston ones are beautiful.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Broncos uniforms are the least of their issues. They now have Zach Wilson on the roster. So here's to the 2025 season.
Homework assignment for all you millennials: Google James Caan Rollerball.
Oh, I forgot to mention, we are at episode 94. At episode 100, we're going to be out of numbers for the number game. So I'm trying to put my brain together.
But wait.
Does it involve math?
I don't think we started the number game until like about 16, the 20s.
16.
Yeah, so we can do the first few.
But that does beg the question, what are we going to do after? So I'm trying to think, what's the next iteration on the Sneakers and Cleats podcast to replace the number game to start off the podcast with? If anybody has suggestions, hit us up.
How about great stats?
I put that in the suggestion box. Yeah. Someone had an idea, I forgot who it was, that had, why don't we come up with like the great sneakers? I think it was Bob. Why don't we have like sneakers send in?
Yeah.
So maybe we can show off some people's sneakers.
Like the Jordan 11.
Jordan 11s, the alien ones, whenever they come out. But that's what we're looking for now. If anyone has any comments or suggestions, leave them there. My email, mroy@sbgtv.com, or any of us on Twitter, Facebook.
And that will all happen after Wayne Gretzky and Jim Otto.
99?
100.
Well, I was going to say 100 was going to be Wilt.
00.
Well, it's going to be Wilt.
Oh, yeah.
When you think of 100, do you not think of the 100-point game?
Yeah, I actually thought of 00. Jim Otto.
I thought of 100. But all right.
Johnny Moore, the great Johnny Moore was 00.
Anyway, that's all we got for you on today's Sneakers and Cleats podcast. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. We will be back on Thursday with the latest on the NFL draft, and I will stop crying about Zach Wilson by then, probably. Until then, everyone have a